This is our 9.5 area of regular polygon notes, and I'm going to look at example number 2, where we are given the radius this time instead of the apothem. So first step is to always draw the right triangle inside of our polygon with the apothem and the radius. Now this time we know what the radius is, so I'm going to label that as 11. And then we need to use our little I formula, 180 times n minus 2 over n. And this has 5 sides. So 5 minus 2 over 5. And each of these individual angles should be 108. Now we divide that by 2. So that I can get this little angle inside of the right triangle. So that's going to be 54 degrees. And now we need to find the apothem, and we also need to get the perimeter. So let's get the perimeter first because we know how to do that. So I need to find this side of the right triangle. And in this right triangle, what I know is the hypotenuse. And what I want is the adjacent. So if we're using SOHCAHTOA, we are going to be using cosine this time. So I have cosine of 54 equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse. The variable is in the numerator, so I have to multiply both sides by 11. And the calculator is going to give us 6.5. Then we have to multiply that by 2 so that I get the entire side is 13. So now that we know that, we can find the perimeter. Each side is 13 and there are 5 sides. So the perimeter is 65. And that's going to be something that we need for our formula. Which means the next thing that we need to find is the apothem. So here's the apothem that I'm highlighting dark in purple. So we're going to have to use trig again. So this time our trig is going to be needing the opposite side, and we know the hypotenuse. So this time we're going to be using sine. So now I have sine of 54 is opposite over the hypotenuse, which is 11. Multiply both sides by 11, and we get 8.9. This is the apothem that we just found, which is the other thing we need for our formula. So now we can go ahead. Area is 1/2 perimeter times apothem, which should be 289.25 squared centimeters. Okay, the next example I'm going to do is not on the note sheet, is on the homework worksheet, and I am going to look at number 12. So here we know what the radius is. So we have to do our first step, which is to draw in the apothem so that we get our right triangle. Then we want to use our little I formula. And in this example, it looks like we have 7 sides. So each of these angles is going to be 128.6. It is okay to have decimals for your angles. And then we need to divide that by 2 so that we find the angle inside of the triangle, which is going to be 64.3. And now we need to work on getting the perimeter and the apothem. So let's do perimeter first. I need to find this distance here. So the 8 that I know is the hypotenuse, and we need to find the adjacent side. So if we're using SOHCAHTOA, this is going to be cosine. So I have cosine of 64.3 equals the adjacent side over the hypotenuse, which is 8. You're going to multiply both sides by 8. And the adjacent side should be 3.5, which means if I multiply that by 2, each side is going to be 7. So now I can get the perimeter. There are 7 sides, and each of those sides is 7. So our perimeter is 49. That's one of the things we're going to need for our formula. The last thing we need is our apothem, which I'm highlighting in yellow. So that is now the opposite side, and I know the hypotenuse. So now we're going to be using sine. So sine of 64.3 equals the opposite side over the hypotenuse, which is 8. Multiply both sides by 8. And that opposite side is 7.2, which is also the apothem. So now we have the two things we need. So area equals 1/2 perimeter times apothem, and we get 176.4. So for your steps, we only added one more step, and that is to use trig or potentially a 30, 60, 90 triangle to find the apothem. Then you'll have all the information you need to find your formula.